I've been certifying patients for medical cannabis for over 10 years now, and I have seen incredible benefits. One of the most helpful ways is by inhaling it, but there are some concerns about some of the ways that it's used. But it can be very effective, especially for children. So let's talk about it. Hey everybody, it's Dr. David. Hope you are having a wonderful day. This is a continuation of our Medical Cannabis 101 series where I'm specifically going to be talking about inhaling cannabis. I've also done a video on the other ways that cannabis can be ingested. So if you haven't seen that yet, please check it out. For those who don't know, I am the founder of Holistic Relief, a medical cannabis clinic in Tampa, Florida, where I have been certifying patients, as I mentioned, for about 10 years now. It's been one of the most exciting things that I've been able to do, and it's so wonderful to see so many people do so well, and also to get better quickly, which is also really nice, because I know a lot of times other medications can take a long time to kick in, if they're going to work at all, side effects, etc. But, this happens so fast that we can really manage it very nicely. Now, sometimes when I am asked about what is the safest way to inhale, you have to take a few things into account. And of course, a lot of parents and other people, they may not be cool with kids inhaling whatsoever, but we're going to get a little bit as to how that could be a done thing for kids. Okay. Wouldn't be talking about them smoking it, but am talking about about inhaling it in other ways. Okay. Now, in terms of the when you are inhaling it, okay, there are some considerations, some concerns that need to be taken into account. First of all, make sure that it is a pure product. Make sure that it is being tested in the batches. That's one of the best things about people who use medical cannabis is that the dispensaries are checking every single batch. What should they be checking for? Not just the percentage. So it may say percentage of THC, milligrams of CBD. Of course, that needs to be done. It's measuring the types of terpenes, the things that can affect the different, impact the different effects of the cannabis, but also impurities, things such as heavy metals. Hemp, cannabis sativa, which is both hemp and marijuana, both of them absorb heavy metals. You have to make sure that you're getting a clean product. Making sure that the medical cannabis products are free of any kind of pesticides, other types of solvents, other types of forever chemicals and plastics, all those things. Is that all being checked for? That's very buyer beware. Different states have different criteria for what passes in there. So, get to know what's in there, but you can really learn a lot to see what that. And again, the medical cannabis companies, they're checking everything, which is great. I think if you get it from a dispensary, at least in the state of Florida, you know that you're not getting anything impure. But I know people get things on the street. There's no way that they would know about that. But even when people go into smoke shops and you see these Delta 8s and these Delta 10s and the CBDs and all these other things, or of course in places where it is recreational, are they doing the same type of testing that medical programs are doing? Buyer beware. Okay. Now, in addition to that, one of the things that had been concerned in terms are vape oils. Okay. Now, you may recall the summer of 2019. So this was before COVID. There was a lot of things that came out in terms of people getting injured through vaporizing oils, like in cartridges, pods, and that type of thing. And there was actually two different things that was going on there. Number one, artificial flavorings. Artificial flavorings were causing damage to the lung, even something called popcorn lung, where the lungs were taking on more of a popcorn type of look to it as opposed to the typical approach at the lung tissue level. And the flavors were actually doing it. So when they're at dispensaries or when people are having just the plant derived terpenes, which gives not just the effects but also the taste to different medical cannabis products, the terpenes, those weren't causing, but there were artificial flavors that were being put in there, which was more attractive to younger people. And oh, I like the taste of this one, not even taking out what they could be doing to the body. The other thing, which was actually causing vape lung damage and burning the lungs, was on the street. A lot of the dealers, the manufacturers, were putting vitamin E oil, which has the same thickness as cannabis oil. So they were cutting the cannabis oil with vitamin E. And while people, obviously, for a very long time, put vitamin E on their skin, they've swallowed it, nobody had ever thought, hey, let's burn it into our lungs. It turns out that burns people's lungs. Now, in a medical dispensary where they have to send it and they have to verify with the state that if it says that their product says it's 80% THC or 40% THC, Well, if that 80% product is coming in at 40, 50%, they would get busted right off the bat from the state. That's why it's not happening in the dispensaries. But again, if that's not where you're getting it from, again, buyer beware, it could be potentially dangerous. Okay, so now in terms of the more broad section, so smoking it is obviously the way that people have been inhaling it for thousands and thousands of years. Okay, an advantage of any form of inhaling, instant work. Within 2 minutes, within 5 minutes, any way that it's inhaled through the lungs, the effects are going to be felt. So that could be great if a person felt a migraine coming on or other kind of pains going on. If a person was having a significant nausea all of a sudden from their chemo, they needed to be able to eat. They couldn't keep something down. So sometimes it can be very helpful, or in an anxious moment, a panic attack moment. So being able to to reduce those symptoms in a matter of minutes as opposed to many minutes to hour or two, that can be incredibly helpful. Okay. Another advantage of the oral forms, I mean the inhaled forms, excuse me, is that if one inhalation doesn't do it, so like when you're trying to figure out the dose, it's easier to figure out the dose because you basically the first time you take one inhalation, you wait 5 minutes. Do you feel anything? No. Take another inhalation. If that works, next time just take two back to back. If that didn't work, take another one. If that works, then three back to back to back can be done right at once to achieve the level of clinical benefit that is necessary. Now, of course, when a person smokes it, though, it's the least healthy. You're putting particulate matter down into the lungs, so that's what's in the smoke. Okay, it's more irritating to the airways. Okay, irritating not just to the lungs itself, but also to the throat. Some people will get more irritation when they're putting smoke back there than if they're putting a purified oil back there. Now, I do of course have some people who say, "Hey, the only way that I get the best effect is by smoking it." Okay, again, it's not my as a physician, I don't recommend anybody smoke anything, be it tobacco leaves or any banana leaves or any of their cloves or anything else like that. Our lungs were not meant to be putting particulate matter into it. Okay, so again, but if the family says, if a person says, excuse me, that's the only way that works for them, more power to them. I'm glad they found something that worked, and I would encourage them to use as little as possible. Maybe cooling it off with a water pipe or something like that, so at least there's less irritation happening. The water can cool things off to make the throat better. But be aware that there is an added risk when a person does smoke it. Now, one of the ways that people can take the flower itself, the buds for medical cannabis, and inhale it itself is what's called dry herb vaping. And in this situation, a person will first grind it up, similar to if a person were rolling it up into a joint. They grind it up as opposed to using a whole bud. It then goes into a device, and these devices have heating chambers in there. You almost never is there any kind of flame involved in it, but it basically heats the temperature up with a little oven inside, and then it'll be like a mouthpiece or something. But the temperature that the active ingredients of the cannabinoids, as well as the terpenes, are released into the air, is a lower temperature than what the plant burns at. So in these types of devices, you put something in that's grounded up green. It comes out bronzed, broiled in a way, like, baked, but it's still all plant material. There's no ash. So you're not putting any particulate matter down into the lungs. Also, because it's by definition done at a lower temperature, it also usually is less irritating to the throat and to the lungs as well. So you can get it. So it's dry herb vaping. It'll look like smoke is coming out, but it's a vapor that's coming out, just like when a person uses a vape pen. And therefore, in my opinion, this is actually the best combination of safety and effectiveness and getting the full benefit of the plant in one whole plant medicine. This to me seems to be the best way of accomplishing that. Now, um, another nice thing about it is that with the exception of grinding up, there's no processing whatsoever. There's no chemicals used. There's no anything else done, pressure or anything to remove it. It's there already, ready to go. Now, another thing about when a person does do dry herb vaping, since it doesn't extract all of the active ingredients, there's still going to be some cannabinoids, THC left over. People can then bake with it. Okay, now of course you will have no idea how strong it is. So if you're going to do that and go through extraction methods, how people can do the extractions with oils and butters and things like that. But you got to be really careful though, because you don't know how much you made. Because it's not like when at a dispensary where you're getting a 10 milligram brownie, you know exactly what's in there. There could be quite variety. So if you're going to do this, start off really slow with it, the amount that you can take. Don't overdo it. Don't just take another one an hour later because you didn't feel anything. Because sometimes it can take longer than an hour to kick in. But that's how one can at least use that as like a second effect from the same flower. Okay. Now, in terms of the vaping itself, okay, um, you will see them as vape cartridges. So I don't have one here, but there's kind of like a pen. Usually, there's a cartridge that screws into it. Most of them come as what are called 510 threads. It's a universal type of thing, so that there are these batteries, and almost all the dispensaries make some of the products that it just screws in, so you don't have to have a special heating device. But basically, what the battery does is it heats up the as you're breathing it in, so it heats it up and allows it to turn into a vapor, which a person then inhales. Okay. Um, the nice things about vaping is that it's very easy to find the terpene profile or the cannabinoid profile that you're looking for, because all of the dispensaries have to put all of that information in there, so you can there's probably the most variety. Well, there's a lot of variety in flower too, but there's a lot more variety in terms of the vape cartridges than there are going to be in capsules or tinctures or baked goods or the others, in terms of the terpene profiles, the percentages, etc. Now, also a lot of times the cartridges are the most cost effective, and the oils that you'll see in some of the concentrates. Sometimes you can, depending on how techy or not, or how handy you are, that you can even refill those cartridges with the oils that are in there for concentrates that are also more cost effective. Okay. Now you will also see at the dispensaries, a lot of them have these unique shaped pods. Sometimes more in like a rectangle or like in a little oval shape, and this is more proprietary. They claim that it's a better delivery system or whatever. Main disadvantage is that if you don't have that particular pot, or maybe it broke, you can't just run out to any smoke shop or whatever and get a replacement. You have to usually get it from that dispensary. Okay, but some people, they claim that their particular types of pods is better, and if that's what you find, that's what you like. Obviously, more power too. But they look kind of more like jewels do, that are used for vaping tobacco and some of the bad stuff. But it looks kind of that, and it kind of pops in that way. But the nice thing about these batteries also is that they are rechargeable. Although there are vape cartridges out there that are single use that you throw away afterwards, and usually those are more done with solvents. Usually those are more lower potency as well, but they are out there too. Okay. Now, in terms of the extraction method, and this is also something important to know about, because chemicals called solvents can be used to isolate the cannabinoids and terpenes, and then put it into the vape cartridge. But there are other ways that one can do it that doesn't involve the chemicals. Now, they're supposed to remove all of those solvents, but of course, if you're concerned about chemicals, if you're using a process, getting one that is using a process that didn't involve chemicals, solvents in the first place, then it can't be in the final product itself. Now, in addition to that, there's a third way that people will be inhaling that you may have heard of, which is called dabbing or dabs. And these are concentrates. And they have these more what are called rigs that are heat things up to a much, much higher temperature, even 600 milligrams. You can get the biggest dose out of it. It is more messy that way. So it can be problematic as well. But some people really like it as their only way of doing it as well. So sometimes you have to have like a heating torch as well to do it, but they do have these like devices, again, kind of like a pen, where it has like a scooper at the end, or some other device where it put the small amount of the dab into there. But people want to take big doses of it, then they're going to typically use what's called like a dab rig. And this can be done in lots of different ways. And I'll be making another video also about the different types of concentrates that are out there. So that way we can learn a little bit more about, some people may like this type of process, that type of process, etc. But that's a conversation of itself. All right. Well, I hope that you learned something, and that you can have better health using these types of products. Have a great day.